Hey everyone, you're about to listen to the next episode of Inside the Skev. We're going to have a delicious conversation with David Lipschutz from Blind Faith Cafe in Evanston. Awesome restaurant, so enjoy. And if you like this podcast, please subscribe, share it, tell everyone about it, and keep listening to future episodes. And if you just love this town or these towns so much, Skokie and Evanston or anywhere around Chicago, and you want to buy or sell real estate, go to my website at aaronmaslyansky.com. I'm a realtor over at Dreamtown Realty in Evanston. I'd be happy to help you. Welcome to Inside the Skev, and I'm your host, Aaron Maslyansky. Today we're here with David Lipschutz from Blind Faith Cafe in Evanston on Dempster Street. And very excited to have David on here. I've been going to this restaurant since I was a baby, pretty much, and grown with it. And just really a pleasure to have you on the show. So thanks for being here.
It's a delight to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome. So David, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and about Blind Faith Cafe?
Well, Blind Faith Cafe is a certified green vegetarian restaurant, 525 Dempster Street in Evanston. And we opened in 1979. So we'll be celebrating our 40th anniversary this October.
Wow.
We're a lacto-ovo vegetarian restaurant, which means that we do offer milk and egg products, but it's vegetarian, no beef, chicken, fish, fowl of any kind. We have a lot of vegan options, and we have a full bakery, and we also do catering.
And it's all delicious. I'll add that.
I've lived in Evanston myself since 1966. I moved here with my family when I was in school and lived most of my life here. For a short time, I was on the West Coast, worked in a series of bakeries and restaurants and catering companies on the West Coast and here in Chicago. Yeah. But fell into the Blind Faith Cafe fairly early in my career. I was just 20 when I started working with the restaurant, and 22 when I bought it.
How does that happen? How did you get into the food business in the first place? How do you know that's what you wanted to do?
Well, it's funny. I'm not sure that I realized that I wanted to get into it. One day in the middle of a lunch rush at the restaurant, I had one of these flashback memories, how you remember things from your childhood?
Sure.
My parents' house had these long radiators in a sunroom, like 6-7 foot long radiators with radiator covers on them. And one of the things that I used to do when I was a kid, and I'd completely forgotten about this until the middle of this lunch rush one day, you do make-believe, right? You do things, you play around the house, you pretend you're somebody else. Well, I used to play a restaurant, and I didn't even realize that I'd forgotten all about it. I pretended the radiators were grills, and I was flipping pancakes or flipping burgers or something, and the living room was the dining room, and I guess I had some sort of inkling of where I was going, but I always loved to cook. I always loved to eat. Who doesn't?
Who doesn't? Yeah.
And when I was probably 8, 9, 10 years old, I used to cook those Jiffy cake mixes. I loved the blueberry muffin mix and the chocolate brownie mix. Just add 2 eggs, a quarter cup of oil, and some water. Yeah. Put it in a mixer, stick it in the oven.
You were a baker at that point.
Yeah, actually, I got into the industry as a baker more than as a chef. And in fact, to this day, I'd say I'm probably more creative and more knowledgeable even as a baker. I worked in a bakery doing breads at a place called the Bread Shop Kitchen, which was down on Halstead and Roscoe. And across the street from the Bread Shop Kitchen, which was on that northwest corner of Halstead and Roscoe, was a restaurant that the Kay Stepkin, who's one of the original vegetarian natural foodies in Chicago, she opened a restaurant called the Bread Shop Kitchen. And I worked at the Bread Shop Kitchen for a couple of years, which is where I learned a lot about cooking natural foods.
Were you like 15 then?
16.
Okay.
I was 16. And actually that space was sold and became the Chicago Diner. So the original location where the Chicago Diner is now on Halstead was the Bread Shop Kitchen in the 70s.
Oh, my God.
And I worked there. In fact, I went to interview for a baker's position because I was interested in baking.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Kay for a while, and she said, I'm sorry, I don't have any baking positions, but I have a position opening up in the restaurant across the street. Would you be interested? And I guess I came off pretty confidently, and I said, yes, I would, and she agreed to hire me. And then before we ended the interview, she kind of looked at me curiously, and she said, how old are you? I said 16. She said, that's what I thought.
You fake it till you make it, though, right?
Yeah, it was great. It was a good experience. It was fun. Yeah.
And then you went out to the West Coast. And where in the West Coast were you at?
Mostly in the San Diego area,
Nice.
Ocean Beach, which was an interesting blend of bikers and hipsters and the ocean. And it had a place called Harmony, which was one of these restaurants where they took the old wood spools from the wires that the phone company had and laid them on its side and put a candle on top of it, and people sat cross-legged on the floor on cushions.
Okay.
But they made pretty good food.
Yeah.
It was a little too new agey for me then, but I learned a lot. They did a lot of fresh juices. They did a lot of natural foods baking, which helped me learn how the principles of baking without sugar worked. And and then I came back to Chicago, and a mutual friend introduced me to this couple who he said I should meet because they were opening a vegetarian restaurant in Evanston. Yeah. Now you have to realize this was 1979, and I'd lived in Evanston since '66, only been gone for a year or so. And I thought to myself, who could be opening a vegetarian restaurant in Evanston, and I wouldn't even know them?
You feel like you know everybody already.
Yeah. Well, the story is on our website, but the couple, actually, one of them was from out of state. He had just come here to go to Northwestern and had driven in and was looking for a place to stay and found a room for rent from his future wife, Fran, who had just gotten divorced and was looking for someone to help her pay the mortgage. And so he flew into town and rented a room from her, went to school for about 6 months, and then he moved from his room to her room, dropped out of school, and the two of them decided to open a vegetarian restaurant.
It's so romantic.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, the way I heard the story, Ivan's parents were sitting Shiva for him after he dropped out and took up with a shiksa, but that's another story.
Oh, wow.
So they looked around. There was a place called the Evanston Snack Shop, which was on the southwest corner of Sherman and Dempster.
Okay, and that's where the Float Center is now,
That's where
right?
the Float Center is today, yeah, just west of the tracks there, just west of the Metro tracks, across from the Mexican shop. And there was an Indian couple who had been running it. It was pretty disgusting. I mean, dirty. I think they did the dishes once a week. Of course, that's all the business they had, so they probably didn't need to do dishes more often than that. But they, carried out the grease in buckets, cleaned it up a little bit, and opened in September of 1979, the last week of September, 1979. Wow. The first week of November, so they'd been open about 6 weeks, I was introduced to them, and I was, really I was taken with the concept. I mean, it just excited me, a vegetarian restaurant in my hometown.
And you had been a vegetarian for a long time by then?
Yeah, at that point, I'd been a vegetarian. Well, I was a vegetarian when I was 14. I turned vegetarian. Okay. So I'd been a vegetarian for 6 years already at that point. Yeah. And back then it was, you made your own bread, you made your own yogurt, you sprouted your own sprouts. There was no Whole Foods. No. There was no Oak Street Market. For those of you who remember Oak Street Market, there was It's Natural on Main Street. There was Sun Grain on Greenwood, Grove and Sherman. It was called Sun Grain. But I introduced myself Fran and Ivan, and I told them I was excited about what they were doing, and I would love to work with them. And later, I had a conversation with the two of them years and years later, and their experience of me was, quote, yeah, he seemed like he was like a little self-confident, a little too self-confident for his age, but we figured, what the heck, we could always fire him if it didn't work out.
Oh my God. And you ended up just buying them out.
I did. I worked with them. Well, I worked with them for about a year and a half, almost kind of with them. Fran became pregnant within another month or two. She was pregnant, I think, before the end of the year. So, within months of them opening, she became pregnant and couldn't really work in the restaurant. Many women, especially in the early phases of their pregnancy, food smells are overwhelming. Yeah. And Ivan, was torn between being with his new wife and trying to keep the business running. Long story short, a year of trying to kind of run the restaurant at arm's length without a whole lot of business experience. They were ready to get out before they lost their shirts, unfortunately. Yeah. And it was actually a great opportunity because I had been working there for a little over a year and a half. And I had all kinds of ideas, all kinds of changes I wanted to make. Yeah. But it wasn't mine, and they were kind of preoccupied with starting a family and giving birth. And so when the opportunity arose to actually buy them out and take the restaurant on, I had the opportunity to realize all the creative inspiration that I was building up over that time.
Wow. And are most of the recipes yours?
The recipes have evolved from all sorts of sources. I have created some of them. Some of them have evolved through chefs and kitchen managers and people I've worked with over the years. Some of them are dishes that we just made for ourselves because we got bored with everything else that's in the restaurant and started making something new, and it caught on. Yeah. Remember that feeling you look in the refrigerator and there's nothing to eat?
For sure.
Believe it or not, you can be in a restaurant and look at the menu and say, there's nothing to eat here. So the menu has evolved. There are actually a few dishes that have been on the menu since 1980. Our namesake blind-faced salad has more or less in its current incarnation been on the menu since the 70s. Wow. A quiche of some kind has been on the menu, which is kind of funny because it's gone in and out of vogue. Yeah. We do a really thick, deep dish quiche. It's like 4 or 5 inches thick. And, some basics, but the menu back then in the 70s and early 80s was, very, very simple. A few stir fries, a few salads, a few sandwiches.
Breakfast.
Yeah, eggs, breakfast, pancakes. The routine was real simple. Every morning we'd come in, put on a batch of bread, make a pot of soup, prep the vegetables, get the line ready, open the door, cook all day, serve food, close up, mop the floor, go home, do it all over the next day. I did that for the first 6 years the restaurant was open and loved it. Loved it. Young guy in his 20s. And
running your own shop.
Yeah, it was fun.
And then you moved the shop in 1985?
I did. After a few years of cleaning up the old place, I mean, the old Blind Faith was great. It was one of those old diners with the short order windows and the stainless steel soda bar and the stools that spin around and the long counter. And it was self-service. We had self-service. You'd go up to the register, order your food, pick it up at the window, bus your own table. Okay. So it was unique in that sense. But I realized after a few years, and we were, successful in, as I would define success back in those days.
Keeping the lights
creatively, on. Yeah, and financially, making any money at all at that age was great. Yeah. I realized it wasn't the kind of place you'd bring your grandmother. Maybe not even your parents, depending on who you were. And I saw that we had a lot of potential. And I started thinking about that and wondering, well, if we were going to move, if we were going to grow, what that would look like. And I think of myself as an Evanston kid, an Evanston native. I love the city. Yeah. In some ways, I've always lived in South Evanston. It was almost like Dempster Street was the border you know, which is funny because I found out years later that originally Dempster Street was the southern border of the original village of Evanston.
Really? And then Ridgeville is where, which is South Evanston now.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
But so I was looking around. I wanted to stay in the neighborhood. I wanted to stay in the Dempster, South Evanston area. And the storefronts in the 500 block of Dempster, where we are now, which at that time housed a Salvation Army thrift store and a computer club, which was a new thing back then in the 80s, and B.H. Seward, the land surveyor's office, who moved over to Maine and Custer. I heard a rumor that that Salvation Army was moving out of their storefronts. So I zipped over and saw the sign in the window, called the number on the sign, got a hold of the landlord, and I guess a little like my original conversation with Fran and Ivan, I came off like I knew what I was doing. My enthusiasm was contagious. He told me right there and then, he says, "This sounds like a great idea. I'd love to make this happen if I can. That would be terrific." And so I was really excited. I was going to be able to take 900 square foot restaurant that sat 40 people and turn it into a 3,800 square foot restaurant that would seat 100, 110 people.
It's ambitious.
It was. And I was so excited, and I thought, this is going to be so great. And I started plans for building and blueprints. And then I sort of hit a bump, which I was really shocked at, which I had to technically apply for a zoning variance. The city of Evanston kind of controls growth by saying that anything larger than 1,000 square feet has to have parking, and parking has to be on the property. Well, of course, on these old properties, there's no parking.
There's no parking
at
all.
So this is their way of getting things through the zoning board of approvals, the ZBA. And I thought, oh, well, okay, I'll do it right. I'll do it by the book. It's a small town. I knew my alderman. I knew the mayor. And so I applied for the ZBA, exemption. And, of course, back then they also had this growing issue about fast food restaurants in the city of Evanston. At that time, they didn't, except for on Howard Street, they did not allow fast food restaurants.
Really?
There was no Taco Bell in downtown Evanston yet. They were just getting ready to come in. And so they created two tiers, which to this day they have, of restaurants. They call them Type 1 and Type 2. Basically a sit-down full-service restaurant and a carry-out what we call a fast food restaurant. And back then they were still defining what a fast food restaurant was, and I was going to have a full dining room plus carry-out. And so I decided, hey, I'd apply for, full-service restaurant with carry-out. And I go to the zoning board hearing, and neighbors from around the corner came to the hearing, and to my shock and dismay, said they didn't want the restaurant to open in that space. Because what had happened is it was a buffer between the business community and the residential community, that block.
Yeah.
And it had been dead for decades.
They wanted
and they
to
liked
stay
it that way.
Quiet.
Yeah. And I was devastated because here I was, this local kid, going to do good, grow my business.
Vegetarian, good for the world.
And the locals thought they didn't want me. I was heartbroken. I really was. I went through quite a bit of political maneuvering, and Jay Lytle, who went on to be one of the officers at First Bank and Trust, was the lame duck at his last city council meeting, cast a tie-breaking vote to actually give me the zoning to move into that space.
It was that close.
It was that close. And, because I know it's not what we're here to talk about, but, in a small town like this, back then especially, it was who knows who and whose kid went to school with who, and, it was that close. And several of the aldermen who voted against me said, hey, I'd love you to open a restaurant there, but my constituents,
lose
blah,
their
blah,
votes.
Blah. Yeah.
And they probably go to your restaurant now.
Oh,
Everyone
the ringleaders, the people who were most vocal about me not opening, were some of my most loyal regulars in the decades that followed.
Yeah.
Apologetically. But so in the fall of '85, we built out the space where it is now at 525 Dempster Street. and opened, I believe it was November 15th, I want to say, we moved. And I initially had the concept to have half the restaurant self-service, like the old restaurant.
Right, which you had for a long time.
I did. And then a main dining room. And I thought when I opened that my self-service area would fill up like it did every weekend, and I'd get a few stragglers in the dining room. So I hired waitresses, but no busmen, no hosts, opened on a Friday night, had a line out the door. Had to call my parents to come help me host and bus dishes.
Oh, my God.
Which they willingly did. And we've been going gangbusters ever since.
It's a great story. I mean, you also had, when you opened up, when you started serving wine, you had to go through a similar process too, right?
Well, I went back about 6 months after we opened.
Yeah.
I went back to apply for, I mean, back then they were handing out liquor licenses in Evanston with an eyedropper. Remember, it had only been 6 years that they'd actually had liquor licenses. Evanston was dry up until the late 70s, until the Holiday Inn said they wouldn't build without a bar, and they magically changed the law. But yeah, so I went back and I said to my alderman, listen, I want to apply for a beer and wine license. And she said, look, don't even think about it. You just went through a bloody war to get the zoning. Just give it a couple of years. Yeah. And I did. I waited 3, almost 4, maybe 4.5, 5 years before I went back and got a license. And even then, they had to create a completely new type of license just for me.
What do you mean?
Well, up until then, back then they had different standards of licenses. They had different types. They had a full bar license, which you could only get technically in what they called the core district, downtown Evanston.
Okay.
And it's sort of that way still. But you could get a beer and wine incidental to food as a restaurant outside. And they were just starting to do that, and that's what I applied for. And to my dismay, again, some of the neighbors came back. I don't know, I guess they were worried about drunk vegetarians chewing on their bushes late at night or something. And I said, look, I close at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock on Friday and Saturday. They were convinced somehow I'd get a liquor license to be open till 2 in the morning with dancing girls or something.
You're the opposite of that.
I know, it's crazy. So I said, look, I'd be happy to commit to only serving liquor till 10 o'clock at night. Yeah. And that was the compromise the city made. They created a standard of license, a different license that was specifically only good until I think it was 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night, just for the Blind Faith Cafe.
That's insane.
Yeah, that bastion of, drunken vegetarian debauchery or whatever it was.
It's so crazy. Well, that's small town. It's like we're part of a big town, but we're a small town.
Yeah, and in some ways it's still like that, and it's one of the appeals, quite frankly, of Evanston. It's not suburbia, and it's not Chicago. It's got that nice balance between the two.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think that Blind Faith is really part of that. Because you are local, you've been here forever, and it's like the quirkiness of the residents don't want to allow something like this restaurant, but it is Evanston.
It is. I mean, and it's become part of the backdrop of Evanston. I mean, with the exception of Dave's Italian Kitchen, which has kind of gone through another incarnation, right. I can't think of another restaurant that's been open as many years continuously, owner-operated, other than the Blind Faith.
Yeah.
It is. It's almost an institution, and as I like to say, some people function well in an institution. I guess I'm one of them.
You're one of them.
But it's a backdrop. I've had kids come into the restaurant with their parents, and they grew up and they came back and worked for me.
Yeah.
And then they came back as adults and ate in the restaurant, and they had kids and brought their kids in to eat, and their kids grew up and their kids worked for me. I've seen 3 generations come through the restaurant as guests, as staff, as neighbors.
Yeah.
We're part of the backdrop, and I'm proud of that we're part of the backdrop of Evanston.
Oh, it's beautiful. I mean, I started coming there as probably a baby. I would go there with my grandparents, quite a bit, now I have my kids coming there, so it's a similar type of thing.
Yeah.
Haven't worked there yet.
But your grandparents still come in.
Yes, they do. It's so it's great. I mean, they love going there. We all do. You had you had another location for a while too. Now, do you like just having the one spot now, or? I do.
I'm a one restaurant man. I really am. I did open a Blind Faith Cafe in the city on the corner of Lincoln and School, right behind the Whole Foods there. That's on Ashland, which is now Wishbone.
Right.
I actually sold the restaurant to Wishbone. I was approached by some people who wanted to invest and grow the concept, and I was excited to try to do it. Built out probably a little too ambitiously, a little too soon in a neighborhood that was still not quite ready for what we were doing. We definitely had some success, but I didn't like the lifestyle. I really didn't. I thought to myself when I went into it, what could you have more than a headache 7 days a week, 24 hours a day? And I discovered you could have a bigger headache 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and it just wasn't what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Well, you have to enjoy what you're doing. I mean, you did also, you had Jackie's on Prairie too, right?
I did. I opened Jackie's in 2009 with the chef who was working for me at the time. Mm-hmm. It was not a vegetarian concept, and in that sense, not particularly resonant with me creatively or in terms of my values or my culinary approach.
Yeah.
But the chef was excited about the idea. I quickly decided it really wasn't for me and wasn't something that was going to be financially advantageous long term.
Yeah.
So I sold it to the chef, who wasted no time in driving it into the ground, as many chefs do when they're left to their own devices.
Yeah.
And it operated, I think, a year after I sold it, and then turned into a sushi restaurant.
Okay. Well, I definitely see. I mean, when you're there, you look happy, and I think that's, if you could focus like what you're doing, that makes a lot of sense, and it shows in the quality.
Well, I think that's just it. I mean, I don't doubt for a second that one of the reasons that the restaurant is flourishing, not just surviving, but flourishing after 40 years, 4 decades, is that I am a hands-on operator. I'm there most days of the week. I'm greeting people at the door. I'm picking up the dirty napkin off the floor. I'm checking the quality of the food. I'm looking at things coming in the back door. I'm making sure the facility is operating smoothly. That's in this industry, in the restaurant industry, that's kind of what it takes.
Yeah.
There's a fine line. You can have lines out the door and not be making money in the restaurant industry. So you have to be smart.
And you have to have good employees. I mean, you've had some people there for, I don't know, what's the longest serving employee you've had?
I've got someone who's been with me almost 20 years.
That's
I've got a group of people who've been with me over 10 years.
Yeah.
I've got someone who's been with me for 20, and a lot of people who've been with me 6, 7, 8 years. I have relatively little or no turnover compared to the industry, and most of that's in the front of the house, not in the back of the house. I am selective about the people I hire. I work with them. I respect them. I give them a good environment, a safe environment, a profitable environment to work in, and sit back and let them do their job.
And they're incredibly friendly. I mean, that's the key. Sometimes you go into a restaurant and you're like, why am I here? Or they forget about you. But, oh, my God, they are the friendliest staff, and the food is consistent as well. So you see that in the back of the house, too.
Thank you. Yeah, it's
welcome.
called the hospitality industry.
Right.
And in this country in general, and I think even in the restaurant industry, that idea of hospitality is still hard to come by. I mean, you find it here and there, and I thank you for noticing.
You're
the Blind
welcome.
Faith is definitely a place where people are welcome. We want people to feel like they're in our dining room, in our living room. They're our guests, and we sincerely want them to have a good experience, and we want to, know that if they're not happy with something, that we can make them happy.
Yeah. And you've had some famous staff. Didn't Stephen Colbert work for you?
Yes, I guess it was in the early 90s. Stephen Colbert worked for me. It's funny, I had completely forgotten about that until somebody reminded me of it just a few years ago. They were doing, when he took over Dave Letterman's show, they were doing promotional pieces here in Chicago. Yeah, he worked in what we call the cafe, which was back then was still self-service. And I remember thinking to myself at the time, this guy is definitely not cut out for the food service business. But he did work for us for a while, and we've had Greg Allen work for us, who went on to create Not Too Much Light Makes a Baby Go Blind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've had our share of people go to all kinds of places. Everybody waits tables at one time or another in their life.
Yeah, and that's not a bad place to wait tables.
It's not.
No. And you've had some colorful art on the walls as well. And a lot of it's from your mother, right?
I've had all kinds of art. My mother, Peggy Lipschutz, is an oil painter, an artist, graphic artist, still living. She's 100 years old and still being creative. I've had her oils on the wall. I've had local quilters work on the wall. I've had local photographers work on the wall. Like anything, it's there always has to be sort of a fresh, evolving feel.
Yeah.
The restaurant has had at least 2 makeovers since we've moved in '85, and it's probably about due for a third one pretty soon. You gotta stay contemporary. You gotta stay inviting, and
Sure.
What that was in '85 is not what it was in 2000, and not what it'll be in 2020.
Right. And so you're planning on doing that, you think, next year?
Yeah, I think we'll be between now and by 2020. I think we'll give it a fairly good going over again in the front of the house cosmetically.
Do you also do the back of the house at that time?
Yeah, well, my philosophy in the restaurant industry is people and equipment, no matter how well you maintain them, they will break down eventually. And the people are usually more difficult to repair than the equipment. But the physical plant is always an ongoing, evolving work, As soon as you finish the last thing that needed to be repaired or replaced, the first thing that you replaced 10 years ago now has to be repaired or replaced. So there's really no end to it. The footprint and the design of the kitchen is essentially the way it was in '85 when I built it.
Yeah.
And one of these days, I keep telling myself that I'm going to close for a month, because that's what it would take.
Yeah.
And really completely remodel the
please
floor
don't do
plan
that.
of the back of the house. Because, my knowledge of what it took to operate a restaurant and how a restaurant operated in 1985 was, so immature compared to what it is today. I could make the kitchen more efficient, more functional, probably expand our menu and make everyone's life and job easier if I, just invested a lot of money and time.
Yeah, but then everyone's going to be upset because they can't go to Blind Faith.
Well, yeah,
it's a trade-off, I guess, right?
It is. And, one day, who knows, we'll send everybody on vacation for a couple of weeks, plan ahead, and do it. Because, at some point you almost have to. Because to grow and to evolve, there's always this creative tension between tradition and innovation. And you're always sort of walking that fine line.
Right, and I think it's similar to things on the menu. I mean, like the grinder wasn't on the menu, or it was on the menu at first for many, many years.
It was.
A favorite, and then it was gone. And you brought it back, though.
Yeah, well, some people don't know the term grinder. It's basically a hot sub sandwich. Right. And Ivan, one of the original owners of the restaurant, being from the East Coast, brought this concept of the grinder with him. And so they had this hot grinder sandwich on the original menu, which we loved, but that was 79, 80. By the time we were still doing it in 92, it was becoming a little passé. We wanted to do, a goat cheese brie sandwich or something,
Yeah.
And so we took it off the menu, and it was off the menu for a good 10, 12 years.
Oh, yeah.
And for that entire time, people were asking about it. So, but then after 12, 14 years, you can bring it back. It's retro.
Exactly.
So, we made it a little sexier, smoked Gouda and a little of this, a little of that.
Yeah.
Caramelized onion, like that. But it's essentially
the
hot
same
sub
thing.
sandwich. Yeah.
It's delicious. What's your favorite thing on the menu?
Oh, God. Well, I could answer that one of two ways. A good bowl of brown rice with a little peanut sauce.
So boring.
But I like our bibimbap.
Oh, yeah.
The bibimbap is our vegetarian sort of incarnation of a Korean classic. It's a bowl of rice with marinated vegetables, and we use a spicy grilled seitan, which is a wheat meat, a wheat gluten, and an egg on top, and a chili sauce, and you mix the whole thing together. It's really good.
That is delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I also love the Thai peanut noodles.
The Thai peanut noodle?
Oh, my God.
Yeah, the Thai peanut noodles and our Mongolian stir fry
Yes.
are our two biggest sellers. And I tried once to take the Mongolian off the menu and almost had a riot on my hand. So I never dared try that again.
No.
But yeah, we do a Mongolian stir fry, the Thai peanut noodles, the bibimbap are probably our three biggest entrees.
What about seitan fajitas? Those are pretty...
And the fajitas as well, yeah. Which we used to do a blind faith variation on a theme, and now we've gone back to the sizzling platter concept, its original concept.
I like that.
Of the fajita with, the smoke billowing through the room as it travels from the kitchen.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's exciting when it comes.
And because my first passion and love was baking,
yeah.
Unlike most restaurants, all of our desserts, everything that we serve, is created fresh in-house in our in-house bakery.
Yeah.
And we have a complete line of vegan layer cakes and bars and desserts and pastry, which wasn't necessarily my intention when I started the bakery. I was doing all kinds of things, but because there was such a demand for vegan, again, before Whole Foods came along, before a lot of other places, we sort of evolved to fill that demand. And I'd say about 75% of my desserts are vegan. A whole series of layer cakes, a peanut butter chocolate cake, a double chocolate cake, an apricot tort. We do a flourless Black Forest cake.
I'm so hungry.
And then we do traditional desserts. I mean, we have I think some of the best tiramisu I've had anywhere in the world. Yeah. Not vegan, but delicious. And we do cheesecake and eclairs and sweet rolls and other things that are more traditional. But we do have a nice variety of gluten-free and a large selection of vegan pastry and desserts.
Do a lot of people just come in to buy a cake?
Oh, yeah. About 20%, I'd say 15-20% of my trade is retail, bakery, and desserts.
Wow.
We do special orders. We do wedding cakes.
Okay. And you do catering as well for parties or weddings or anything people want?
We do quite a bit of pick-up and carry-out catering, large pans of food. And we also do on-site catering for weddings and large parties.
I would love to go to one of those. And you're open 6 days a week. You're not open on Monday, right?
That is true. Believe it or not, for 30 years, I was open 7 days a week.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And one morning I woke up and I realized just that the restaurant won't survive if I don't survive. And I need a down day. And traditionally, Monday is the day the restaurant's closed. And I think part of that's because in the old days, a lot of restaurants were closed on Sunday and Monday. People would go to church or, their family. And Monday is kind of traditionally the quietest day of the week. And I decided that we would take a day and just give the staff a rest, give the facilities a rest, and give myself a rest. And I think since we stopped being open on Mondays, which I want to say was about 7 years ago, 8 years or 9 years ago, I think I've almost taken 2 or 3 or 4 Mondays off. But I usually go in. I'll just go in for an hour or two.
That's sad.
Well, but see, the things I used to have to do in the middle of the night.
Yes.
Now I can do on a Monday.
Yeah, all the business end, the paperwork and all that,
Yeah,
ordering.
Repairs and things that you can't do when you're open or that you'd have to close to do,
Yeah.
or we used to have to close to do.
And do you see, so I guess the future for Blind Faith is renovation, staying in that same spot, not opening more places, and just keep refining and getting better, right?
Yeah, we are going to be constantly evolving our commitment and our concept of what it is to provide vegetarian foods to the community. Mm-hmm. We're going to try to always respond to the needs and the growing, changing needs of our clientele and the community. And we're going to be true to ourselves in terms of our values and philosophy, in terms of how we employ people, how we compensate people, what we serve, what we don't serve. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we're going to grow. We're not going anywhere. We have a great relationship with Evanston, a great relationship with the building. And
you fought hard enough to get in there.
Yeah, you got that right.
Not moving.
And you probably find me there 10 years from now, picking up the dirty napkins and greeting people at the door.
That's fantastic. So if people want to find you, you're located at 525 Dempster Street in Evanston, but what is your website and where can people find you on social media?
We're at blindfaithcafe.com. And at Facebook, it's Blind Faith Cafe. Mm-hmm. There's a link to our Facebook and Twitter accounts right from our website. We also offer delivery through DoorDash, which you can access through our website. And we have a pretty active email list, which does offer specials and sometimes discounts, and you can get on our email list right through our website as well.
That's great. Well, I'm hungry. I think I know where I'm going for dinner. I'm sure the rest of you will as well. But David, thank you so much for coming on Inside the Skev. I really appreciate the time.
Oh, thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Me too.